In studio, it's the Living Well podcast. Feel free to share this out. Feel free to ask questions. Let us know what you have going on today. We want to hear from you. I'm going to kick this on the FM. Here we go. Good morning. This is KHEA Radio, 99.5 FM. It's just after 9 o'clock, and I have Dr. Aaron Chapa with Living Well Clinical Nutrition Center located in Leak City. Dr. Chapa, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing great, Gardy. How goes it in the world, my brother?
I'm good. Everything's good. It's the Christmas season. It's here.
It is upon us. We are less than 30 days away from a new year. We are less than, I think, 20 days away from yet another wonderful Christmas experience that we all get to have. So hopefully everybody's in the spirit. Hopefully the lights are up, the house is decorated, and you can sit back, relax, and figure out how to get all your shopping done between now and then.
When people ask you, are you ready for Christmas? You talk to a lot of people. What do you say, and how do you handle that question? Are you ready for Christmas?
So when people, I typically beat them to the draw, and I ask them first and then get their response. But I would say that if you turn the tables and you ask me if I'm ready for Christmas, I would say no. It comes too fast for me. I really do try to savor the experience of the joy of the Spirit, the imagination of my kids, and the conversations of like what if and what is, and what will it bring. And then, but it seems that when you have, in my world, 4 kids and just a lot going on in my business life, the days move very quickly. So I have to work very hard at slowing down in order to enjoy it. And so, that would be my message is, no, I'm not ready, but it's only because I know that it's going to be here and gone so fast. That's what I'm not really ready for it to end. Because I really enjoy just everybody is, whether they are or aren't, the overall energy of the Christmas season is always elevated. There's more joy, there's more hope, there's more good tidings, than and more hope and what's the word? Opportunistic? Not opportunistic. I don't know, good tidings for the new future, whatever that is. There's a word I've just drawn my blank. But I should have taken some more supplements before I got on the show. But at the end of the day, I love Christmas. I love, all things. I look forward to I'm going to be, dressing up like an elf the week of Christmas. So it'll be kind of fun to see what kind of smiles and stuff I can shock my patients with this year. So it's always good. It's always good. Mm-hmm. Are you ready?
When people ask me, I never know what to say because I'm not ready, and I don't want to say no, I'm not ready. Why are you a Scrooge? No, I love Christmas. We're just not ready. But I like that. I'm going to start asking first. Everybody I see, if I'm at the store, I'm checking out.
Yep.
Hey, you ready for Christmas? See what they say.
That's right, because you might be shocked. I get definitely some funny answers. Heck no, no way, no how. What if they do the heavy huff breathe? There's so many different answers that you get, and but I always do when it comes back down to it. It's the same story. Is we want to enjoy, would it be cool if we could just take everybody in the U.S. would just take the entire month off and we just enjoy a month? They say that I've heard great motivational speakers, specifically one in particular named Mark Victor Hansen, and he said that he takes 1 month off a year, and I'm and he says and inside that month he has a new opportunity that pops up because he gives his body, his mind rest and time to think about other things. So, what if you could build a life that allowed you to afford 1 month off so that you could sharpen the saw?
I was going to say,
Stephen Covey always likes to talk about.
I would say most people probably would if they could afford it. And then you talk about, well, how do you get there? You have to build a life, maybe start it. What's the end goal? I want to be able to have a month off. Okay, build backwards. What are the steps that need to be taken next year, 5 years from now?
That's right.
Yeah, make it happen.
And so that's the journey, right, that we're all on. And I think in some respects, the world has kind of convinced people that the rat race is never-ending cycle, that we're doomed to busy. And our good friend Dr. Garza, Al Garza, always likes to talk about busy is being under Satan's yoke. And we really do have to be mindful of our words and how easily it is to slip down the negative trail of life, see things through a dirty lens, and to kind of just find ourselves hopeless and a little bit lower on the old energy, giving pole. And then if we had my very first patient yesterday was so kind in her words to me, and it was literally like the Holy Spirit just needed to get a message to me, and the lady I'm just adjusting her, and then all of a sudden she just starts talking about how she manages stress, and that her stress was a 1 on a 0 to 10 scale, 10 being the worst, and she was at a 1. She goes, and let me tell you, I wasn't always a 1 on the 0 to 10 stress scale. I was the 8, 9, 10 girl. I was worried about everything, stressed about everything, anxious about everything, nervous about anything. And I mean, I'd wake up just and make stuff up to be nervous and stressed about, is how I did it. And one day the Lord gave me, the words is, I need to bind up what that spirit of fear, that spirit of doubt, that spirit of anxiety, and I need to cast it into eternal darkness. The Bible says what we bind up and loose, God will do in the heavens for us. And she says, so I commit my will to my soul, my mind, my will, and emotions to binding up those negative energies and casting them into the outermost levels of darkness. And if you think about that thought in and of itself, when Jesus was casting the demons out of the man that was beating himself up and really nasty to himself, they didn't want to just be cast out. Where did they want to go?
Into the sea or in the pit, like
into the
pigs.
Swine. Yeah, because at least they could see there, right? They could still potentially wreak havoc there. But even the pigs' bodies couldn't handle it. And what did the pigs do?
They jumped off
off the cliff and drowned. So these spirits being cast into the abyss, into the outer, most darkness, that place for which they cannot see, they cannot function, is the last place they want to go. And that's what we get to confess with our mouth. And then she said, I commit my will and choose to hold fast to God's peace, that peace that surpasses all understanding, that confidence instead of fear. And I'm gonna latch on with my mind, my will, and emotions, and take captive all the negative thoughts and grab hold of the healthy thoughts that the Bible offers. That I'm blessed going in, I'm blessed in the field, I'm blessed in the city, I'm the head and not the tail, and that we have these confessions that the Bible talks to that we can hold dear to, but we're so afraid to speak to because we doubt. Oh Lord, help us with our unbelief. And I'm guilty, guys. I mean, I'm just sitting here quoting like this was a blessing to me. This lady started speaking this truth to me, and I'm like writing it down. I confess with my, what was it again?
Yeah.
And because it was so good that I needed to be reminded that my words matter. The way I speak matters. The lens that I look through matters always. And I always want to be pointing others to Christ. This lady helped point me to Christ yesterday morning, and it was just so cool.
Here's a question. This came in from Noah. Again, you can feel free to ask questions and also help us get this out. Hit the share button. Let us know what you have going on today, and are you ready for Christmas? So this is a question from Noah. He said, what's your challenge for 2023, Dr. Chapa? What is it?
Great question, Noah. Why did you have to pitch me one so fast and so hard?
So early in the morning. Right?
Man, okay. I have a lot of great things on the horizon, and the hardest thing is choosing to do the next right thing that the Lord is leading me to, not necessarily just be stuck in the mundane of all the good things that I get to do. So I have a lot of good things, and there's always a few great things, and I really want to focus on God's number one thing, and I am working on that, and that is just making a lot of efficiency changes in my practice so that I can be a better blessing to the patients, finding that work-life blend where I can pour into my kids while they're still young and vibrant and wanting to continue to grow with me. and watch how I handle business and challenges that come up, and then just to be a good steward of the time that I might be able to invest in, friends and family and stuff like that. So, it's difficult whenever you have a lot on your plate, and so you have to learn to say no. So I would say saying no. I'm really thankful that the Lord's already given me giving me 2 words for next year, which is simplify and excellence. And those 2 things are going to be my focus. Starting now, I'm really thankful that God gave me a whole month to think about it. Simplify and excellence, moving forward into the new year, 2023. And so we'll see what really comes of that. But it's going to be, taking all the things that I do and putting them on the table, evaluating them, and saying, all right, this is a good thing, but unfortunately it's got to go. This is a great thing. This has got to stay. This is God's number one thing. This is going to get most of my attention. And so I would say that we should all be thinking, Lord, what are the words that you want me to focus on going into 2023? Lord, what is your next right step for me? And I do pray this often. Lord, make the crooked path straight and the rough path smooth, and be a lamp unto my feet, so that I might not stumble and fall. But if I do fall, may I fall forward, roll through it, and get my high knee back up and keep trucking along and not stay and wall around in that muck and mire for very long. So that's my gospel message for the morning. That's where I'm going.
That's awesome.
So thanks, Noah. That was a fun thought. So just like are you ready for Christmas? Yeah. What's the biggest challenge coming for us all? And I like what you said earlier too, Gardy. What do you want your life to look like after you've done built it? What do you like? What do you want your life to look like at the end of next year? Or, what steps are you moving towards to get to where you're going? Because it's one thing to write it down, I want this. That's actually harder than you realize. And so I think that it's important that we write out goals, but I think it's also important that we write out the whys of the goals, because we got to remember God's more interested in who you become in the process, not necessarily the mess you're in or the success that you have. He wants, truth to be told, right? And you and I know that the Bible says that truth will always ring out. Lies will be exposed, and we've seen that, haven't we? And so everybody's on their journey. Everybody's in process, no matter the level of success they have or the lack of quote unquote success they have, whatever definition we operate from. So, coming into the December months, we've got a lot of, great things. I made I didn't make it, but my mom and I found a cool recipe that we're experimenting with, and it's a gluten-free, dairy-free pecan pie and a pumpkin pie, and we're experimenting with that. And so we did make it. But it was gluten. It was an organic wheat crust, and oh my gosh, it was so good. You could have just eaten the crust. But I love it because it wasn't like the traditional pecan pies that are syrupy and so sweet that you instantly feel bugs turn into Godzilla in your mouth and start chomping away at your teeth.
Yeah.
It was so light and refreshing. It was like, oh, nice.
Last night we had a Christmas party that we were at, kind of the staff and stuff, and someone was eating pecan pie, and the question came up, what is this? What's on the inside of this? And I was like, I think it's literally pure sugar. And so then they were like, well, eggs or egg whites, cornstarch, sugar, you whip it and all this stuff. But it's just interesting. It's like, I don't know what it is. And we eat it,
That's right.
But, having different options.
Yep.
And at least you know what's in it, especially when you make it yourself.
That's right. And we definitely made it ourselves, and it was definitely healthier. We used real maple syrup instead of like the modified cornstarch or the high fructose corn syrup or the crystalline fructose. We stayed away from the fake processed, heavy laden sugars that destroy our bodies. And yes, there was some sweetener in there, but it was so good. So, and it was all organic. I mean, it was you can get organic pecans. You can still get away with some making the best of a treat and that was fun. And we haven't made the pumpkin pie yet, but that's coming. And the pumpkin is it's just another fun experience. When the holidays come, it's like pull out your best and let's see if we can tweak those recipes, and let's see if we can make them good and healthier than they would be. And that's what I'm always surprised at. I think that even the people that come in and see me that are on carnivore, or they are on hardcore keto, things like that, you can overeat one meal a day and still overeat. Yeah, you need all those calories, and if you're choosing to do that, you got to remember there's a rhyme and a reason that you're doing that diet and lifestyle. But what happens is if you overconsume, like if I ate that entire pie, that'd be a problem. But if I had a few bites of that pie over the course of a few weeks, would a bite over the course of a week mess me up as opposed to eating a whole slice or half the pie? And I think the answer is no. I think your body is designed to tolerate in seasons. I mean, if you think about how we came to canning and preserving fruits and whatnot, is because they were only around in season, and so we would have access to these fruits in season, and they didn't transport well because they were heavy, and so we really only indulged in them lightly and in seasons. And now we just live in a culture where food comes to us and we have stockpiles of stuff, sweeteners and sugary items year round. And we have to remember that in our bodies we have 5 hormones that are designed to lower blood sugar. And you have 5 hormones designed to raise your blood sugar. You have 1 hormone designed to lower your blood sugar. But yet we live in a culture where our blood sugar is already running high. Our metabolic factors in our blood work, triglycerides or cholesterol, our ratios are out of sync and sorts, and that's because our blood sugar is out of sorts. It's too high. And so why did God create a system where we have 5 hormones to raise blood sugar and we have 1 to lower it, but we live in a culture where we already are running too high? That's the question. And it means that we are in ourselves doing something in our diets that is causing our body to overuse that 1 hormone, and we're doing something wrong. That insulin is overused, and then you become resistant to it. Then you become diabetic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And go ahead.
I was just going to ask, do you think that our bodies would adapt, if the Lord doesn't come back in the next this century or whenever, I don't know, in years as humans have?
What do you mean adapt?
Well, you talk about our bodies, like, hey, we used to use all of our teeth. Now now we don't have room in our mouths. There's different things where
you think, okay, I see. Well, and so based on what we have already seen as a form of quote unquote evolving bodies, evolving genetic sequences, we're already seeing a higher level of infertility. We're already seeing an earlier onset of diabetes, not type 1, where you actually have a broken pancreatic system where you have to be injected with insulin all the time. I'm talking early onset, needs of type 2 diabetes. I think that the infertility, I think that the blood sugar, I think that the PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndromes, the hormonal dysfunctions, the increased rate of fatty liver disease in non-alcoholic humans is already showing us that the body's not able to adapt to sugar. We're just talking, right? So this isn't science by any stretch, but maybe if we weren't given so much processed sugar, chemicals, right? Remember, if white sugar was introduced into our society today, it would be a controlled substance. Controlled substance. Do you know what that really means?
Like a illegal drug.
It's an illegal drug. It's a controlled substance that needs to be prescribed accordingly. Nobody's going to overdose on maple syrup. I know that, the elf did, but he's an elf. I mean, he's an elf, and elves can get away with the 5 candy canes and candy corns and the syrups,
the food groups,
the important things, and so, but for us humans, and he made that differentiation. Even the movie, I'm a human raised by elves. She goes, I'm a human raised by humans. And so, but he knew that he was a human raised by elves, and his body did not evolve, and therefore he left the North Pole, right? I mean, if we're just being silly. So no, I don't think that if Christ did not come back in the next 100 years, I think that you would see what Francis Pottinger saw in the Pottinger's cat story, the evolution of cats raised on processed fake food. If you eat make-believe food, the best you'll ever have
Make-believe health.
is make-believe health. That is a firm truth. That is a truth that will stand the test of time. You will see more and more infertility, the inability to reproduce, be fruitful, and multiply. You'll see more issues of brain destruction. You'll see a dumbing down of culture, our ability to, maximize people in space, and exploration of new thoughts and ideas at a faster level would go down over time. Our names, numbers, words, our vocabularies would all go down. I think that we would see a very large destruction in the human culture if interestingly, we're like killing ourselves through gluttony and through just poor food choices, and then a either choice to eat the wrong foods or a now lack of knowledge to know what the difference between food is because of terrible marketing, selling us a bill of goods. Our body is not designed to be raised on or function well with chemicals. Sooner or later, it's going to tear down, and we see this even in infants that are coming out of the womb. They come out in a gestational diabetic world. The mom's blood sugar is already whack, and the baby is perceiving the world to be just a land of sugar substances, and is already having a blood sugar crisis in the womb. That's scary, but that's happening, and so therefore mental decline starts early, and the ability to unravel that is all the more difficult because of the difficulty in making the choice. I mean, if 90% of your choices are processed fake food and 10% are real choices, and you're raised on the 90%, all the Rand Corporation, Coca-Cola Corporation, Lay's potato chips, they all know that if they can get you eating their brand of food or drink before you're 9 years old, they got you hooked for life. Hooked for life. I mean, think about it. We could ask the question: are you a Heinz ketchup person, or the Frenchies, or are you
Hunts
and Kraft? I don't even know. Are you what type of mayonnaise person are you? Everybody's got one. What type of cheeses do you gravitate to? I mean, we are creatures of habit. We do what we were taught, and we're afraid to venture out past what we know is comfort into the land of the unknown, because we don't want to mess up, or it might taste bad, or it might cost us too much to try something new. I saw the best thing on Facebook yesterday. A friend of mine, and he's been on the show many times. Not on the show, but he's one of our fan club, Nick Sandu and Mara Sandu, and they had their son.
He needs to come on. I've tried to get him to come on before. I think the scheduling thing.
Oh, I can. Yeah. Maybe I can squeeze
Let's do it.
Blood out of that turnip. That'd be fun. But they had Luke just making whatever he wanted to make in the kitchen. I mean, it was cornmeal or something. I don't know what it was. It was everywhere. And it was the coolest thing, because as parents, I've heard parents say, "Oh, I can't let my kids do that. They'll mess up the kitchen." And I've even been in a situation where people have come over and go, "You let your kids do that? I mean, look at the mess they're making." I'm like, "I know." But guess what? They are learning, to make messes. They're learning that messes come with, a cleanup side too, that they got to figure out how to do it. Look at the way they do you're letting them put the dishes in the dishwasher. They're not perfect, and you're not maximizing the dish load. I know, but at least they're learning to wash it off out of the sink and put it in the dishwasher, and they're learning some skills, right? And yes, it's not maybe going to be perfect and orderly like the textbook manual that we never read says it should be done, but at least it's being done, and we're starting to get their hands, quote unquote, involved in the cooking, cleaning process, and that keeps the creative imagination flowing, right? And it allows you to not fear or worry about making those mistakes that lock you into bad patterning. And I think that's a beautiful thing that we should be offering all of our kids, and we should be even offering ourselves. Man, I just heard a story yesterday. I mean, how many people probably burned something at Thanksgiving?
I say everybody.
Yeah, sure, had to be, unless you bought yours. But one of my patients was so sad because she wanted to make a Dr. Chapa friendly Brussels sprout, and she burned them to a crisp. Or it wasn't that she burned them to a crisp. She accidentally grabbed the garlic salt, not the garlic powder, and so they were unedible. They were not edible in the least, and they had to throw them out. And so they weren't even Dr. Chapa friendly because they just couldn't be consumed. They had the potential, but it was a fail, and they were stuck to eating all the traditional, fake foods, casseroles, and processed junk that is offered. Hey, it's okay. It's one meal, right? I mean, it's not like you're eating these things for days on end. Most people don't. And even if you did, if you ate in moderation, I mean, your body could potentially tolerate it better than if you put, a whole 20 pounds of chemicals in your body versus, a pound. You know what I mean? Like there's always a amount of volume that your body can handle, should be able to handle, and you want it to be able to handle as a sign of good health. But there's always going to be a tipping point. If you tip the scale too far one way and you burden the body and it backs up, bogs down, and now gets sick, and now you've got the flu, well, you probably overindulged, right on? And that's okay. I mean, you're seeing the humanness and the fragility in the body, and as much as we don't want to accept it, man, and that's just because we're a little bit, the world has taught us to be robotic. We have to grip that we are human, and that our bodies do carry burdens, and that we have to be mindful of how we live, how we treat it, how we deal with, the cheat foods that we get into, and the volume and the frequency for which we get into them. Remember, what you eat's important, but what you don't eat is
more important.
So we've got to know the difference between sometimes food, real foods, and all the time food. So be, creative. And don't let the fear of the unknown stifle you. We had a holiday baking class last month, and the consensus in my office was even our own tribe, our own patients, are still using fake sugar or real chemicalized white sugar, and not leveraging these whole sugars, right? The maple syrups, the coconut sugars, and the like, so that we can get away from some of these, make-believe chemicals that are causing our body's problems. And I know, and it's what is it? You don't have time to make the mistake, right? You don't have time to make 2 pies. You got to get it right the first time. And Grandma's traditional recipe worked. Well, maybe Grandma was using a better quality wheat back in the day. And so you got to go a little out of your way to find that better quality wheat or whatever, or better quality sugar source. And there are options out there, and that's what we just got to keep reaching for. Hey, what's the new idea? Give me a new, direction so that I can implement something different. And if you just make 1 degree of change in your diet, you'll see that that'll begin to evolve into other aspects of your day. So like you get breakfast right, we know you start your day right, you will typically end it right. If you drink plenty of water first thing in the morning, you won't be dehydrated by the mid-afternoon most of the time because you're starting your day right. If we keep doing the next right thing with our health, we'll find that we have more energy to move in the groove. And if you're willing the discipline to move and groove a little bit every day, you'll find yourself doing things that you've used to do, getting out, picking the weeds in the yard, getting out and, keeping up with your chores and to-do list, and making sure that your life doesn't seem to be overwhelming you as much as if it did in the past.
Here's a question that came from Susan. Good morning, Susan. And again, you can feel free to ask questions if you're watching on the Facebook stream. She said, what is a good sweetener to use? I bake a lot.
Oh, good. So coconut sugar is at the top of a list. Some people don't like coconut sugar. So they do have maple sugar powder. They have maple syrup that you could use. Sometimes it does make it a little heavy. You do have your alcohol sugars, so your erythritol and stevia mixes. You have, xylitol could be used. You got to be careful with any of the all products, the xylitol, erythritol. Those are what we call alcohol sugars. The reason that they mix it with the stevia typically is because stevia still is a very strong, it's 2,000-year-old Peruvian herb, and it has a sweet flavor. It's totally sweet and safe, and it's not going to wreck your blood sugar in any stretch at all. No questions about it. However, it is got a little bit of a funky sweet taste, and if you're not accustomed to it, it won't fill out your meal right. So they found that if they mix it with some of these alcohol sugars like erythritol or xylitol, that it still gives you that feeling of sweet. And the nice thing about your alcohol sugars is they're a 5-carbon compound, not a 6 like table sugar, and so it doesn't stick to your teeth, if you will, or feed the bacteria the same way and strengthen them as white sugar does. And so the 5-carbon compound and the alcohol sugars can be very destructive to the bad guys because they can't really gnaw on it or eat it. They're not evolved enough to handle that type of fuel source. And so they'll typically die starving trying to eat a alcohol sugar. The problem with alcohol sugars, though, is they can be irritating to your stomach. It is an alcohol. And so that being said, if you overindulge, you'll know because you'll get some digestive distress. That could be something simple like bloating or something extreme like loose stools. So you've got to kind of pay attention to that. But for example, the pecan pie, we used a maple syrup powder, and it was, HEB carried it. And it worked really well. And yes, it's not pure maple syrup, as is some of the as a sweetener. That'd be even an upgrade. But we were going for a very light effect, and we were just playing around. But it is a better sugar, and it didn't have cornstarch, didn't have high fructose corn syrup, and it didn't have any other things in it. It was a clean powder. So that's kind of how you would look for some options there. And we can post some of our others. I think we have some of our handouts still from the baking class. I'll see if I can get my staff to put that up on our little link there.
Did y'all record that or do anything on? I know sometimes y'all would broadcast live stream.
I do believe we zoomed that. I don't recall at the moment. We have definitely in the past, but I don't believe that I can't remember if we did or not, but it was really good. We had some really nice treats available. We had these little things that were like, they seemed like, and I just don't remember the full recipe because it was a month ago, but it was like chocolate covered caramel, if you will, and it was amazing. And but there was some cheesecake optional things that weren't cheesecake, and they were all Dr. Chapa friendly foods. And but definitely we'll see if we can get you some of those recipe alternatives for sugar. But Irma's Nutrition Store, if you go over there, that's a very good resource for just like hey, I need some alternatives to sugar in the baking department. What do you got? And she'll have like 5 or 6 of them right there. Boom, they're on aisle 6, and they're very helpful over there. They're in NASA 1 Road and across from the Space Center.
Yeah, I've seen them on social media before. I haven't had the opportunity to go, but I have seen them interact on like some of the shows. They should sponsor your podcast.
That would be
makes sense.
That would be amazing. Yeah, especially we've been frequenting them quite a long time. They've been a great asset to the community of health, wellness, and the gluten-free movement long before it was popularized and people knew what gluten was. They were talking about what celiac disease and gluten was meaning and how to outperform it. So
awesome.
Kind of cool. But yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for that. Question's always welcomed always. And we know that, when we at Living Well Clinical Nutrition Center are taking people through processes, we start with the simple things is, what can you do today that you haven't done in a long time? I'm amazed that like time in the saddle. Like I had a guy come in one time that had overalls. He was quiet, and he just looked unhealthy. You could tell he didn't feel good. And he was a big dude, and I remember pulling his boots off, and I about fell over. It was pretty bad. And but we were looking at some issue he had with his foot. It was like a blister, bunion, ulceration of sorts. It was like an open wound that he was kind of toting around, and I wanted to see how bad it was. And it's amazing, like the body tolerates a lot. He was walking around with an open wound on his leg or on his foot area, and for a long enough time that it started changing his gait pattern and the way he was moving and not moving, which was then compounding his problem. And if you think about what bugs do love to see if they can get you as still as possible. So they will attack you. Viruses really love the lungs, for example. Not all viruses, but upper respiratory for sure. They love getting your breathing pattern all out of sorts so that you can't, or don't want to move much. Or they'll attack, your extremities, especially the legs and the feet, and that's where it creates immobility. And the more immobile you are, the less you breathe, the better it is for them. They like stagnant environments. Think of a pond that is stagnant versus one that's a river. The river flows with very little bugs. I mean, of course, there's bugs, but you can't see them. The pond is stagnant, and you're like, the closer you get, the mosquitoes start eating you, and you're like, what in the world? And so bugs in our body, if they can get us stagnant and sluggish, they can overtake us and bring down Goliath, if you will. If we can stay active, mobile, and press through their stagnant ways, we can break the mold and we can defeat strategically their attempts at slowing you down. And so we come in with, one, the knowledge of how do you deal with a high fever? How do you deal with the upper respiratory pain? How do you deal with the wound that won't heal? And in 6 months, this big old dude, that was, a big, tobacco chewing guy, and I don't want to say lazy, but lazy lifestyle, and began to do yoga activities, began to do breathing exercises. We began to, if the dude don't move, the dude don't groove model, get him active and moving. We started changing one meal a day, changing his water intake, and then getting his supplemental intervention plan in place where we could turn on his lymph system. We could turn on his detox pathways. We could clean out some of the debris and the trash and the waste in the bowels. And lo and behold, shocker, he began to get better and better and better, to the point where the wound healed up on his leg and he was more active. He was doing more things outdoors with his family. He became a new man. He was handling stress differently. He didn't even realize, and had we not had toxicity questionnaires and his symptom surveys and, a tracking method of how he felt before he came in, he would have never have known that he felt so bad. And, on our website, justlivewell.com, we have these little health surveys, and they're not long and extensive. I mean, we have long and extensive ones, but we have them because they give you tools to assess your sleep, or assess digestion, or assess your immune system and your allergy elimination system, things that your body should be doing a good job at handling, but yet your body is maybe not in these departments doing well. You need a checklist of, this is who I am today. This is who I want to be tomorrow. I want to be the guy without all those symptoms. I want to be the guy that feels great, lives great every day that I'm on this planet. And then we start on a journey. We start supporting those weak areas of the body that are bogged down and congested. We start making the necessary lifestyle modifications and retrain you in order to function like God created for you to be your best. And so guess what? The one degree of change through analysis. So we do a great job of analyzing a patient, figuring out what their blood work looks like, what their stool looks like, what their hormones look like, how their body's performing through these symptom surveys, and it gives them a picture of, this is who I am. And we know we don't want to be like this in 90 days. We know we don't want to be like this in 6 months or 9 months or 12 months. We want to enroll you in the process of taking the bull by the horns, that your life, your health, your choice, you get to make it when it comes to health, well-being, and vitality, that vim, vigor, and vip that I always like to talk about and believe is attainable for all people, whether you are the adolescent ADD kid that can't focus in school, or that you're the fatigued middle-aged person that can't get out of bed, or you're the depressed person that wishes that they could get out of the dark hole they're in, or you're the elderly person that just needs to get down on the ground and play with their grandkids or pull weeds out of the garden. Giving people their life back is what Living Well is all about. We want to give people functionality. We recognize you're aging. We recognize the body gets gummed up and mismanaged. It's like having an old Volkswagen Beetle stuck in the forest, and it's got rotten tires, an old worn out engine, and rusty. And all the insides need to be redone because the upholstery's fallen out, And guess what? It just needs some TLC. So does your body. And we can see the car. We know that if we put new tires, new paint job, tune up on the motor and engine, fix this gasket, push this button, get these things going, that we can get it running and get it going again. But we don't think that our body needs that same TLC. But I am here to tell you, if you don't change the filters, if you don't change the buffering systems on how you manage your environment, if you are living in a toxic environment, your body will accumulate waste over time, and it accumulates on your body. And it's not, so I always tell patients, people are not fat. Like that's a misnomer. They are toxic. The fat cell can swell up 7 times the size of its normal state. So if you think of 100 normal size fat cells doing their normal healthy jobs, because they do have a healthy job on the body, and they swell up 7 times the size of normal in order to store extra toxins that have accumulated because the body has a hard time getting rid of it. Is that a bad thing? It's protecting you. Yes, we don't like its aesthetic appearance because, again, bad marketing has taught us that fat is bad. It's demons. We got to get those demons out of our body. And I get it. I don't like them either. However, if we would be more active, control what we can, manage that blood sugar, make sure that we're eating regularly, reasonably, and in a frequent pattern where we're not stressing our system out, we will perform better and be more at an ideal weight. Again, I'm just shocked that people just have an emotional eating pattern. They have an overeating pattern. They are creatures of habit in the wrong ways. And if we can train them, recondition them into doing it a different way, it is fascinating. And it's just time in the office. Sometimes these changes take time. I have a guy comes in. He never drank water when I first met him. And literally lived on coffee and energy drinks. That's it. And I'm like, the only other fluid he might have gotten was the fluid that came off of something that was cooked. And he just didn't have any water sources. And his body was a wreck. And I am shocked that today we joke around how much water he consumes. It's still not enough, but it's so much better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we always are moving forward. And it's because he knows if he'll come in every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, that we're going to talk about the things he needs to do more of that are important. And slowly but surely, I start to seep into his thinking. He goes, what would Chapa do? Oh, Chapa would probably not eat that. Oh, today I'm going to indulge. I'm going to be, I'm going to do it my way. Your life, your health, your choice. There's always consequences, good and bad, and so you get to choose. It's your choice. That's the beautiful thing. But then there might be the day where he chooses better. And then what if he chooses 4 out of 5 times better? What if he chooses for a whole streak, 5 days in a row better? And then all of a sudden, he has that little falter, and then he feels it. He feels the body decline. Then it's that understanding that the body is going to give you the check engine lights and the positive check engine lights that you're doing it well, because you feel better when you wake up. 2, you have less cramps in your body. 3, you have more energy throughout the day. You don't feel that afternoon draggy crash that people experience. These symptoms that we're talking about are all things that you can control. These are things that absolutely are a telltale sign that you got to get a handle on. And so at Living Well, this is what we're always out to do, is to teach you how to live out the healthy way, to choose better, wiser, more frequently, more often, so that you feel your best day in and day out. And no matter what condition, I like to say, if you were not genetically born with it, you can undevelop it. And so choose a different path, and that's what we want to be, your number one health and wellness resource, to choose better living. I think it's a very important thing to stay active, to make good healthy choices early in the day, and to just keep plugging away at it with the mindset, where do you want your life to be 5 years from now? Where do you want your life to how do you want to feel 10 years from now? And are you on track today? If you're already feeling 30 years old, 40 years old, 50 years old, or whatever, and you go, oof, man, my body doesn't move like it used to. Let's change the game. Let's do something different, and recognize that it's up to us to learn a new skill in a world that is teaching us bad skills. And if we can do that, we can pass that down to our kids. And then what happens? Then, Guardian, instead of being the Pottinger's cat where we're degenerating every generation, we start regenerating and redeveloping and being reconditioned to remain in the thinking seat where our brain is doing the hard thing, thinking, day in and day out, continuously. It's just your thinking muscles are very underdeveloped in many, of our ways. And thinking is hard. It's the hardest thing to do in life, I believe, is to think. I've heard it said the hardest thing to do in business is to think. I would take it up a notch and say the hardest thing to do in life is to think, because life is about what? Making decisions and then being okay with those
consequences,
really. Because every choice pushes a domino down the domino lane.
Yep.
And so, but it's, if we have good coaching, which prayerfully I pray that every one of us is open to good coaches to come along our path. That's what we are at Living Well. It's good health coaches to help you see the areas in your life that you need to be doing different. Hey, yes, you need to do another intestinal cleanse number 2 protocol. You need to run another digestive cleansing protocol, gallbladder flush, liver flush, lymphatic flush, sequential immune boosting protocol. If you've got to get in there and you've got to stir that pot of yours, your body, so that it isn't stagnant, it isn't sluggish, it isn't bogged down and broken day in and day out. And because where you are right now is not where you have to stay. You can just go recognize, okay, I'm not where I want to be. I'm off track, out of shape, and system is not performing its best. But what can I do today? And I can't tell you how often I've had a long, stressful, mentally grinding type day, and it would be easy, Gardy, to go home and eat sugar. It'd be easy to go home and suck down a glass of alcohol. It'd be easy to go do something that's a little bit on the destructive side of my body. But instead, man, what if I chose a hot tub or a hot Epsom salt bath or a workout or a walk with my dogs or a walk with my kids or, what we did yesterday is we got in the hot tub and it was a little too hot. And what do you think we did? We jumped in the cold pool. And you talk about, I slept great doing that hot cold therapy. And we did that several times, and it was very interesting to see, how the body handled the polar plunge. And it really wasn't that cold. Give me a break. It ain't cold outside. But it was chilly, for I'm not Wim Hof, I'm not able to hike in the icy cold mountains, glaciers, springs, and do some of the crazy things that he's capable of. I mean, I'm probably capable. I'm just not willing. There's a difference, right? And but man, just doing the hot cold in my backyard with what I had was pretty awesome and refreshing. And it was interesting how I can't even describe. I'm going to do it again and see what it was exactly that my body was feeling, because I felt some really interesting things.
I have a question. So, with that, hey, think about and kind of be, I guess, aware in the moment. You've talked about that whenever taking supplements or whenever eating your food. And I've seen people reference it with working out. See your muscles contracting, and as you're lifting, it's a muscle-mind connection or a mind-food or a mind experience with the plunge. What is that?
That's your nervous system adapting. And that's one of the most fascinating things about us as humans is our nervous systems are very evolutionary. They're very adaptable. They're very able to, on the fly, course correct. So based on what you're feeling in that moment, you can train your body to acclimate or appreciate. I have a supplement I love in my office called Thymax. It's a T-cell upregulator, simply. I have a product called sesame seed oil. It is just that, sesame seed oil. And when you take these two substances, it will stimulate your bone marrow to produce more white blood cells. And you will feel initially, it doesn't happen to me anymore, but you will feel initially a band of pressure, like a halo type pressure in your forehead, a throbbing of information, blood download software, immune system upgrade, like I like to say, for 10 minutes or so. And that is your nervous system, you're acclimating to the increase in white blood cell stimulation. And that is a really cool thing. So that what you can do today, that is the hardest thing you can do today, tomorrow will be either equally as hard or a little easier. Every time you keep at it, your nervous system will learn, and it'll be like, oh, I've done this before. I know what this is going to feel like. These are the muscle firing capabilities I need. And we build, a world that allows some levels of stress. There's another concept that you're speaking to is called eustress. We know what distress is. We know what stress is on our bodies from a cortisol perspective, but eustress, EU stress, is a way of stimulating heat shock proteins to be produced, which are very healthy for our body to appreciate. Like, oof, that cold water stung, but it didn't kill me. This is what I need to do to acclimate. So you activate many other cells into action that were sleeping. And again, if the dude don't move, the dude don't groove. If we don't use it, we lose it. So by stimulating your body through heat shock proteins and or temporary measures of challenge for your body, stinging sensations like a polar plunge, your nervous system will turn on in ways that it hasn't turned on in the past. It's like getting rid of all those cobwebs that are in the closets, and you're decluttering. You're getting rid of all the gunk and the junk. That's a good thing for your body, because the less you're burdened with, the less fat cells you have, the more brain power you have, and the more energy you have to go do things that you love and have always desired to stay doing and stay active, performing. So that is a great question and something that we want you to do. So make that change. Change the type of food you eat. Challenge yourself to eat the Brussels sprout, eat the asparagus, smell the pea. Maybe not like sniff it, but like just, oh, that aroma. Oh, that's what asparagus smells like. I know what some of y'all are thinking. And then, make sure that you're doing things that challenge you day in and day out. And let's not get, bogged down with, oh, I had a stressful day, so I owe it to myself to just sit on the couch and do nothing, right? That stagnation is what gets you set up for dis-ease. That dis-ease leads to inflammation. That inflammation leads to disorders, and disorders leads to diagnosis, and diagnosis leads to unfortunate demise. And we don't need that. I mean, we're all going down, to the death track. But man, wouldn't it be more fun if you were a little bit more control and you had more energy along the way, and your life worked out the way you would have envisioned it in your 20s and 25-ish time frame, as opposed to where you're at now, broken and beat up and depressed and not where you want to be. We've got to change. We've got to evolve. We've got to learn something new and apply a new skill, a new task, especially if we don't like where we're at. And recognize that, yes, we don't need you necessarily being, high jump champion in your 40s, but maybe there's some things you could do to create joint mobility and strengthening exercises to core muscles in your body that will take you forward the distance, or changing your diet so that you're not toting around that extra 20 pounds around the middle, or making sure that your liver is not bogged down and your gallbladder isn't full of stones so that you don't have that, sluggishness. Remember, 1,500 pathways can be unleashed for good if you don't have it bogged down with gunk and junk. So at Living Well Clinical Nutrition Center, we offer a lot of things to a lot of people for a lot of situations. So what we ask and what we want you to know is that if you have a symptom that you weren't genetically born with, give us a call. Let us help you figure out where you can start on the path, because we can take anybody, young or old, a male or female, all the way to their promised land and allow them tools to feel better, live better, stay better all the days of their life, and pass that on to their friends, family, loved ones. And then, secondarily, let us be your number one health and wellness resource. Tune into the show. Share it with your friends, family, and loved ones. Come and be a part of our detox program coming up in the new year. Don't wait until the new year. Let's get started priming the pump now, cleaning out the bowels, cleaning out the liver. There's little things you can do today that will make a difference tomorrow. So God bless you guys. We always love being with you on the show, and we ask always that you share this with your friends, family, loved ones, and we'll check you next time.
This is KHEA Radio, 99.5 FM.